second half.
Here comes Gooden gonna score the 2 and 1.
Full drive inside. Stop. Hang on a pivot. Turnaround jump shot is good.
Jordan Battle with a nice spin move. Kicks it down low. Fardaws, Big Maple with the finish.
What's up, Whack Hoops Nation? Another episode of the Straight Outta Whack podcast will be coming to you on this Wednesday. It is UTA week, UT-Arlington, one of the newcomers to the Whack. Before I get to my guest here, I just want to say I have some apparel that I'm creating for Whack Hoops Digest, Straight Outta Whack, all that stuff. I have some coming today, so I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. Maybe it'll be on our podcast episode that we talk with UTA Lady Mavs head coach Rika Wright tomorrow. But today, it's all about the UT-Arlington men's basketball team as we have head coach Greg Young joining me. Greg, right before we got off this, I'm not going to ask you about it, but you had a pretty heated meeting that you were in just a minute ago. So welcome to the WAC, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's good. The one thing the WAC is that I've been impressed with from a conference standpoint is we do have a platform. We do have people within the WAC office that care about basketball. But when you have those platforms, you have open discussions, and I think that's good. And coaches are opinionated, and so it was good. There was some good, lively discussion, and I feel like we made some headway today with the the members that are moving forward after this year. So we'll see where it goes, but it was good.
Good. So you were in the WAC 2012, 2013. It's a little different now than it looked back then. I mean, you still got New Mexico State this year, obviously, right. But talk about the change that you see from that year to now rejoining this conference, because it's like I said, there's only one team left over from that year.
Well, when we were our 1 year in the WAC previously in 2000, I guess 13, it was a really, really good league then. You had Utah State, you had New Mexico State, obviously, that traditionally has been a dominant, basketball program in WAC basketball. You had Louisiana Tech, Denver was really, really really good. Seattle was in the league, so there is New Mexico State.
So
Seattle,
there's some familiarity there.
Idaho, San Jose is a good league, and there was 3 Texas teams: UT-Arlington, Texas State, and University of Texas San Antonio. We'd all transitioned from the Sun Belt, but man, it was a great league from a standpoint. I just thought it was a basketball conference, and I was like, man, this is going to be good. We felt like it was a progression from the Southland. We won the Southland Conference the year before. We knew it was a step up, but we ended up having a good year. Made a run in the WAC tournament. I think we finished 4th in the regular season and got all the way to the WAC championship game and got beat by New Mexico State in a close game in the championship game, and was excited about our progression. And all of a sudden, because of various reasons in football and things like that, it just sort of disintegrated from what we initially thought it was going to be. And then that's when we made a move to the Sun Belt.
Talk about the league now. I mean, obviously it's, there's a Texas faction within it. I mean, what is it, 5-6 schools down there in Texas?
Yeah.
You got the Southwest in New Mexico State, Grand Canyon, Southern Utah, Utah Tech, Utah Valley, and California Baptist, Seattle. But talk about this league. It feels like it got better last year with those additions, and now it's getting even better with you guys, Southern Utah, coming in. Talk about what you know and what you've seen and what may be the biggest challenge for the Mavericks.
I think there's a lot of challenges for us. I think anytime, and I've been here at UT-Arlington for going on 14 years, and we've been a part of three different conferences. Now this is the 4th. Southland, WAC, Sun Belt, now WAC again. There's always challenges when you enter a new conference. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter what you've done the year before. It's just the things that you would think, where you're flying into, where you're staying, where you're eating, where you're playing, new consortium officials, style of play, all those things factor in to being a part of a new conference. It just is what it is. The WAC is metrically obviously a better conference than the Sun Belt. I know the WAC from a standpoint I know how good the coaches are, how good well established some programs are in this league, how good Coach Simon and Southern Utah were last year. So I'm familiar with it from a standpoint of relationships with coaches and programs and styles of play and success. So we've got a challenge. That's the challenge is it's a new conference. You're going to have some things in a new conference that you're not familiar with. Your players aren't familiar with it. Your coaches aren't familiar with it. Even though I've been to all those places that we play, I've played them at different times throughout my career. I know it, but it's still different. And then the other challenge is I think the league is really, really good. And like you said, it's gotten better. And hopefully we're a part of that, making it better. But I think it's really, 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 one of the best mid-major basketball conferences in the country with well-established programs, really good players, and really good coaches.
You talk about some of that familiarity. You played Abilene Christian last year, an overtime game there at home for you guys. Obviously, Brett Tanner, you know what he's going to bring. I mean, talk about how fun when you play a game like that. I know it wasn't the outcome you wanted, but like how fun is a game like that between two schools that are really close together?
Yeah.
Really.
Well, Brett and I are friends. We've known each other for a long time, but when I got the job, I inherited a schedule through COVID and some things and contracts and games we had to return that we put off during COVID. But what I was trying to do before we knew we were going to, join the WAC was I thought we needed to continue to try to build some in-state rival home and home games. Obviously, the success that ACU had through the years, but just the natural geography of it, and we both agreed to play the game, and it was a great game. We got beaten overtime. We were ahead. They had a shot at the buzzer to send it in overtime. I respect how Brett coaches, how hard their teams play. We've got a great natural rival with Stephen F. Austin through the years, but we haven't played them in several years. Obviously, the same with Sam Houston. We'll get this 1 year in the WAC with them, but we have that natural rival that with Sam Houston. Obviously, Tarleton is close, and even Rio Grande Valley. We've played UTR, Rio Grande Valley through the course of my tenure here. So I think that's a neat thing about the WAC is we've got a little bit of these natural rivals. Where in the Sun Belt, we had one real natural rival, and that was Texas State. We lose that, but you add Stephen F., Sam this year, Tarleton, Abilene Christian, Rio Grande. That adds some spice to it a little bit, I think, just because their alumni bases here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they all have those, and usually when we play those teams, they're fun games, they're hard games. But they're well-attended games on both sides.
I want to ask you about the difference maybe in the style of play that you're expecting from the Sun Belt to the WAC. Not sure if you've seen video or film, but if you have, what's kind of the difference that you've noticed?
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit, just my familiarization with some of the coaches, especially the guys in the state of Texas. I think, just eyeball will tell me that we're going to play more teams. And I know New Mexico State will be this way for sure. We're going to play more teams that really, really try to make you uncomfortable defensively. There's a lot of similar styles of play defensively, especially from some of the people that I know are familiar with their style of play, coaches and things like that. Other than that, I just know there's a lot of good coaches in the league. I've seen Cal Baptist on film the last couple of years. Just we've had common opponents, and so you've seen them. Obviously, Seattle's had a great year last year. I know how good a job Mark does at Utah Valley. I've obviously seen Grand Canyon, Bryce. Those guys are going to be. They're always really good. So I don't know if style of play is. We had good coaches and good teams in the Sun Belt. I think the one thing just my eyeball would tell me that there's going to be some teams like us that try to really, really get after you defensively. Other than that, I haven't done as much research on specific style of plays. I just know there's a lot of good teams, a lot of well-coached teams, a lot of established teams in the WAC.
Talk about your loyalty to UT-Arlington. Like you said, you've been there 14 years, longtime assistant, associate head coach. Now you're the head coach. Got that job a couple of years ago. Talk about the loyalty there, because a lot of coaches nowadays, especially the mid-major level, they want to get on with their, career and look for not every coach, I should say. Let's be real about that. Like a lot of coaches want to take that step up, and you and Jason Hooten down there at Sam Houston, John Judkins at Utah Tech has been there a long time. Rick Croy at CBU has been there a long time too. But talk to your loyalty and your, with regard to the Mavericks, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think everybody's got a different story. My story here at UT-Arlington is I was a longtime junior college head coach, had coached at this level before as an assistant, was really happy being a junior college coach, really thought that's what I would do the rest of my career and loved it. Had an opportunity to come work for Scott Cross. I grew up around here. I have family close to here. Obviously, that was a big factor. Scott did an unbelievable job here. We sort of got to see the program metamorphosize from Texas Hall, the Southland, to the College Park Center, and we were really rolling. I mean, Scott was instrumental in that. We got it going. We were winning. I enjoyed where I was living. My family enjoyed where I was living. From 2015 to 2018, we won 74 games. We averaged 24 wins a year. We were ranked in the mid-major poll as high as 2 several times. We were really good. Beat Ohio State, beat Memphis, beat St. Mary's at St. Mary's, beat Texas at Texas, won a Southland Conference championship, Sun Belt Conference regular season championship, played in the WAC championship game, and played in the Sun Belt championship game. And then we got fired. And so we all got fired, including myself. And so, didn't think I would be back here because that was not what I was thinking. But Chris Ogden got the job. We had friends, mutual friends, mainly Chris Beard. And I remember Chris calling and says, "Would you go back to UTA?" And I said, "Absolutely not. There's no way I'm going back. They just fired us. I mean, I don't want to go back." But after talking to friends and people in the business and people I trust, and I had a daughter that was a junior in high school, and Chris Ogden was great. And, he just said, "Hey, GY, I get it, man. I get what you're going through. But I would love for you to come back. I wasn't retained. I was fired. I would love for you to come back." And so after about 3 weeks, I moved right back into the same office I cleaned out. And it was hard, but because I had loyalties to Scott and to the things we'd done here before. But Chris was good to me and did a good job in a hard situation. And then, didn't think anything of it. And then 3 years later, he had an opportunity to join Chris back at Texas, and all of a sudden, I'm back really without a job again.
Yeah.
And but I convinced him that I was the best person for the position, and I still know that to be true. That at that point in time of where this program was coming out of COVID, we were sort of struggling. That I thought that I was the best person for the position, and now I'm the head coach. So Providence is what I think it is. I don't know what it is, but that's what I think it is. And so obviously I am very loyal here because there's a lot of people that have been really good to me here, some that aren't here anymore, some that still are. So I love UTA, and I'm glad to be the head coach and excited about our second year in a new league.
You talked about that success, under Scott Cross, and I read the almanac and read the quote that was in there about wanting to get back to the winning ways? Like how do you see that coming about? I guess you could say. I mean, we've seen it. The wins have kind of dropped every year a little bit
Yeah.
here. Not to be a negative Nancy or
No, no,
anything,
no.
but
It is what it is. You are what you are, and there's not one person to blame or why did we. But when you raise the house, and that's what we did when we got fired. The decision was made to tear the whole house down, um, and to get rid of everybody in the house, and it's just part of the business. But when you tear a house down, you can build it back foundationally with bricks and stone and things that aren't going to move, or you can do it in sand and mud and that's sort of what had happened. And I'm not saying that's because Chris did a bad job. I'm just saying because he left again. Now we're starting a little bit over, even though I was with him, the foundation has still not been built fully. And so I'm still trying to establish that. Now we want to replicate some of the things that we did when Scott was the head coach here, no question about it. And that's what we're trying to do. But then you throw a COVID year in there, you throw a successful head coach getting fired, a guy that came in here and we went to a conference championship, Chris Ogden's first year in the Sun Belt. And then we lost some of the foundation and the core group of those guys that we had coming back. So he was trying to rebuild it a little bit too, which was going to take some time. So we're still in that process. But nobody cares, I mean, they want you to, they want that sucker built fast. They want you to win every game, and I get it. And so when I took the job, one of the reasons I got the job probably was because some loyalty from players. We had some guys that were leaving in the portal, by things like that. So I allowed everybody that wanted to stay. And but that was part of a roster that wasn't very good the year before. But I thought it was the right thing to do. So I knew after the first year, I knew what it was going to be. I wasn't naive. It was my first rodeo. Had a hard schedule. Knew what we inherited. Had some injuries. Played hard, were aggressive, got better at some things, but we were what we were. We won 11, 12 games. And we got to be better. So I flipped the roster, and now we've got 10 new players in a new league. But that's part of that foundation being built to try to get back to the point to replicate where we were before. And then obviously, like anybody, you want to be better. And so that's what we're trying to do. So, and we're trying to do it quickly. Yet to be determined for sure.
sure. No, I like that. The kind of like building it brick by brick a little bit and getting back to, building that, like you said, that foundation, getting those guys that want to play for you and, that team, that culture that you want to establish as as you being a head coach. And I like that actually. I really do. I want to ask you about a couple guys in your roster that are coming back, Shamar Wilson. And I also want to ask you about the health of Pedro Castro. Is he healthy? Now I know he suffered the season-ending back injury, but how's he doing in his recovery and being possibly ready to go for you in November?
Well, he's healthy. It was a nasty fall. Had surgery 24 hours after the injury. Had to put a plate. Was out the rest of the season. It hurt us basketball wise, but more importantly, you're just worried about the health of a student athlete and a player that was, that's really close to me, that came back when I got the job. But he got cleared this summer, and he's had a good second part of the summer and a good fall. So right now, he is 100% healthy and practicing every day, and has had no issues with the injury that he got last year. So we're excited about that because he's a 6-year, whatever, super senior COVID guy, medical redshirt guy. We had a former player that talked to us yesterday, played here in 2009. He looked at Pedro and said, "Didn't you play with me back then?" So he's been here a long time, which is a good thing. And then, Shamar was a guy that we recruited during COVID. which when we were doing all this type of things in recruiting, you were doing virtual visits and virtual tours and things like that. And his junior college had not played the COVID year, and we had a friend that told me about him, and so we were able to sign him during the COVID year, and he just was much better than I ever expected, and actually had a really, really good year for us last year. Probably should have played more, but he's had a great spring and a great summer, and we're looking forward to him having a really good season for us this year.
Can you talk about you got a couple of high-profile JUCO recruits. You're a junior college guy yourself, so, you know what you're looking for specifically with those guys. Kyron Gibson, Dario Domingos. You also brought in Marion Humphrey from Salt Lake. Talk about the impact that these JUCO guys are going to have on your roster this year, if you can.
Well, we need them to, and that's my wheelhouse a little bit. And that's part of trying to replicate part of when we were really successful. We did a good job recruiting junior college players, and I love junior college players. I love junior college coaches. And so it's always going to be one of the first places that we try to go. Now, obviously, when you have to rebuild a roster, it's a necessity. But Kyron Gibson, just I fell in love with him when I saw him play. When all these guys that we signed all played in Hutch. So Kyron Gibson from Lee was in the national tournament. Hutch, Dario wasn't, but Dario at New Mexico Junior College played for Luke Adams. I thought he was my kind of guy, somebody that we could throw the ball to in the post, and that's who he was, and that's what he was great at. Marion Humphrey from Salt Lake, was a Division I guy. Was at the University of San Diego, and then transferred to Salt Lake. Played on the #1 team in the country. Just an elite athlete, fast, physical, can guard you, can finish. And then we signed Taj Anderson from Indian Hills, who played in one of the best junior college programs in the country for Hank Plona. So those 4 junior college players were a huge part of our class. They're part of what we tried to do to replicate some of the things that we did here in the past. At UT-Arlington, I think you got to recruit inside out. You got to recruit Dallas-Fort Worth, the state of Texas. We made a priority to do that in my first recruiting class last year. We signed 3 really good Texas high school players that are on our roster now. We signed 4 really good junior college players, all really, really good programs. We signed a Division I transfer from the portal from Texas A&M and Aaron Cash. So we felt like we, from a recruiting standpoint, we did what I wanted to do, and how I think that you build this thing back to where we had it once before. That was somewhat the formula that we did previously, and it was part of who I am, and it is still part of who I am as a head coach. So all those junior college players are really, really important to what we're doing.
I want to ask you too, last year we had Teddy Allen in this league. We had Holland Woods,
Yep.
Savion Flagg, Texas A&M transfer. All those Power 6 guys, really good years, obviously. You mentioned Aaron Cash already from Texas A&M. What's kind of going to be his role within your squad with that veteran leadership, that, high major level experience?
Well, it's a little bit yet to be determined. Now, I think he's a really good player. And obviously, with transfers, at whether they're portal transfers, transferring down from a high major to a mid major, I think they have a perception that may not be reality all the time. But he's done a great job of integrating himself. He's done a great job of being coachable. He's done a great job of trying to figure out who he really is at this level and what he can be really good at. We've had him here all summer. I thought it was really important to have him here all 8 weeks of the summer, just because we had so many new players. But we're still evolving. We haven't played a game. We haven't played a game together as a team. But I like Aaron Cash. I think he could be a pivotal part of our roster. But like so many of our new players and some of the guys returning, it's still yet to be determined a little bit, just
Sure.
because we don't have that established guy that's returning. Hey, this guy was a second team all league guy, averaged 15 points. We just don't have those guys with that kind of resume on our roster. It doesn't mean they can't be those type of players, but even Aaron Cash was a uh, he played 10 minutes a game at A&M, so he doesn't have that resume.
Sure.
He wasn't that guy, but I think he's a really, really good player, and I think he'll be a really, really important part of what we're doing going forward.
How do you? I mean, obviously, you're going to coach different in November and December because you're trying to figure out your roster and who's going to be the guy or whose hands the ball will be in late in games and stuff like that. When you take into account, I mean, you open at New Mexico or Oklahoma State on November 7th to open your season. You have another game at Cal in your West Coast trip that features a game against San Francisco. How do you judge, I guess, where your team is at? Do you judge it more by those games, or do you judge it more by like when you play in North Texas or in Nevada or San Francisco, like we said, or do you go to the Gulf Coast, showcase?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. I think for our program, this is me speaking, right or wrong. I think we have to evaluate ourselves on the people at our level that we play, the mid-major program. Now, all our mid-major, we play a really, really good schedule. It's not as ridiculously hard as it was last year. We're still playing some games from COVID. I mean, Oklahoma State was a 2-for-1 that I inherited as a head coach. I wouldn't be playing at Oklahoma State if we hadn't inherited that contract. San Francisco is a game that we owed, from 3 years ago. So Nevada is a return game from 3 or 4 years ago. So we're still inheriting these games a little bit, but I think I'll judge our team in a preseason standpoint. How do we compete against North Texas, top 50 net team, well established, really, really good? How did we compete and match up against Texas State, who we play on a neutral floor, who won the Sun Belt last year, who we split with? How do we match up and compete with the 3 teams that we play in the Gulf Coast Shootout? Those are the games I think that we can look at and go, okay, man, we got a chance. We're getting better. We can be competitive within the WAC. I think when you play those high majors, you can read too much into them one way or the other. I think sometimes whether you play well or you get mashed. We got mashed at Oklahoma State last year, just mashed, and we weren't ready for that. Hopefully we're a little bit more prepared and a little better and ready for it. But that'll be a measuring stick from one year to the next. All right, we're playing the same program we played 1 year ago. How have we improved as a program? What have we done culturally to get better? What have we done in recruiting to improve our roster? So I think there's a lot of ways to measure yourself in the non-conference. But I think when we play these mid-major teams that are really, really good, that's the best way, I think, to measure how we're progressing, how we're maturing as a program.
One last question here as I close up this episode. College Park Center. I mean, what are your feelings on it? It's one of the seeing it last year when you guys played Abilene Christian. I was watching that game. I've never been there before. I'll have to get down to Arlington.
Come on, man. Come on,
My
Kyle.
sister lives in Fort Worth. So
Kyle, what are you waiting on, dude? Come on. Yeah.
But talk about that place. I mean, what's it? It's
Well,
one of the best in the WAC, I think.
Oh, I think so. I mean, I'm biased, obviously, but I think it's one of the best mid-major facilities in the country. And I've been to a lot of them, but it's 10 years old. We celebrated a 10-year anniversary. I was here the day it opened. I've been in it in packed arenas and Elite Eights of the NIT and conference games and things like that. It is a great place to play and work. And, but we've got to do a good job. It's like anything. We got to put some cheeks in the seats again. We need to put a good product on the floor. We need to get our student body back excited about basketball. We need to get our community back excited about basketball. I think this is a great year, an opportunity to do it with a new league. I think people coming out of COVID last year, it was still some uncertainty. And so hopefully we can have this home court advantage at the College Park Center like everybody wants to have. And we've got some work to do that, but it's a beautiful place. It's a great place to play, and you'll love watching a game here in person.
Awesome. That's UT-Arlington men's basketball head coach Greg Young. Greg, I appreciate the time. I'm sure we'll talk more, as the season goes along. And, November 7th is 33 days away. Jeez,
don't remind me, man. No, I'm excited. I love this time of year. October is a hard time sometimes for players because we're getting after them and coaching and practicing but they're looking forward to the season. So I'm ready for the season, and we all have some closed door scrimmages and things like that coming up in October. So it's an exciting time of year.
Awesome. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
Thanks for listening to the Straight Outta WAC podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcasting platforms. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember to follow us on Twitter at WAC Hoops Digest and Facebook under WAC Hoops Digest for all your WAC Hoops news and information.